too.
You chose a cactus. Okay, tell me about the flowers on a cactus.
The flower on the cactus is a seed, and inside the cactus, and it will grow up when the cactus is get much nutrient. And it take water in the cactus.
Okay, what special adaptation does it have?
It can stay in the desert and not need water.
Dino, what flower did you choose? I know, but tell everyone else. What about what's easiest? So choose the one you find most interesting. What flower has a sunflower? Okay, so what about the flower of a sunflower is special by means of its adaptation?
Turn to the sun.
Okay, so yeah, the flower will always turn to the sun. Jon Snow. Jon Snow, what flower did you choose? What flower did you choose? Rosie, what flower did you choose?
The sunflower.
Okay, and what about the flower of a sunflower is an adaptation? Hearing from a lot of people is not too much finished, and what I want to make sure, yeah, Minnie, 1 second, is that you're doing the right thing, okay? So if you're going to talk about a flower, and you're going to talk about the adaptations of that flower, what is the job of a flower in a plant? What does a flower do?
The flower produces seeds.
Yeah, the flower produces seeds, okay? So we need the flower for reproduction, right? So reproduction is the making of seeds so the plant can grow again. What are the steps for reproduction? What are the 2 steps before a flower can produce a seed? One begins with P, the other begins with F.
Pollination.
Pollination and?
Fertilization.
Yeah, good job, B, well done. So what I want you to do and make sure that when you are choosing your flower to talk about, that you are looking at adaptations for that step, okay? You got to find out how the flower pollinates, how the flower fertilizes. So if you're talking about a sunflower, for example, yes, an adaptation of the flower is that it turns towards the sun. But you also need to remember, what else does a sunflower do to make pollinators come to it? It's bright and it's yellow and it's big and it grows up really tall. So there are some adaptations for what a sunflower does. So I want you to make sure that when you are talking and researching your flower, that you are looking into these adaptations as well, okay? Yes, Dino, do you have a question? Okay, the reason I ask you to turn your camera on so I can make sure you're not paying attention and running away or sleeping like monkey on your camera, so I want to make sure you're there and you're paying attention, okay? So, as I was saying, when you are doing your research, make sure you look into this. What is the flower for? It's for reproduction. What are the steps of reproduction? Pollination, fertilization, reproduction. How does this plant pollinate? How does this plant fertilize? How does this plant reduce? That's all part of what the flower does, right? You know this well. We've done it countless times. So make sure you look into those steps. Anything you do with this project, remember what that part of the plant does. If it's a root, what does a root do? It absorbs nutrients and water from the soil. How does it do that? If we talk about leaves, what do leaves do? They soak in sunlight, they let water go from the plant. How does it do this? How does it adapt? These are the questions I want you to ask and answer. What I'll do for you tomorrow, I don't have it done today, I thought you understood this a little bit better, is I will write an example for a flower. I'll just choose one flower. I'll write an example about a page from your book or something you need to put on your poster to try give you a better understanding. And I'll make sure that you fully understand it, okay? So before we go on, does anyone have any questions about what they should be doing for their book or their poster? Okay, yeah, we'll go Dino and then Dino, yes.
So we have to
choose a plant that can reproduce?
No, not necessarily. Like, you chose a Venus flytrap, right? And you're talking about a Venus flytrap. How does a Venus flytrap make new Venus flytraps? Tell me about that. Yes.
How many pages?
How many?
In the book, maximum how many pages?
We'll just do 5. We'll do 5 parts of the flower, okay? Or 5 parts
What
of the
is
plant.
the maximum number of pages?
Knock yourself out, buddy. You can do whatever you want. But
Yay!
keep it short and simple, man. Like, just
12 pages.
12 pages, cool, fantastic, great stuff. As long as the information is correct. And if you're going to use the internet, don't just copy from the internet. Write it in your own words. You understand? Let's go. Cool. Have fun. Pete, do you know you have one last question? How do Venus flytraps breed? Okay. So, Venus flytraps reproduce like many other plants when their flowers are pollinated. So, Venus flytraps have flowers. There we go, Dino. So, Dino, if I was you, I would go, okay, so I'm going to look into a Venus flytrap's flower. I'm going to see what it looks like. I'm probably going to draw a picture of it. I'm probably going to label the parts of it like a normal flower. I'm going to see where the male and female parts are. I'm going to see what's different. What's the adaptation? What is different about a Venus flytrap? What is it that you need to know? Now, for a Venus flytrap, I'm sure it's pretty hard, considering that, when a pollinator comes, it wants to eat the pollinator. So, I don't know. So these are things you're going to have to look into, Dino. Okay, so these are the next logical steps. If I was to take a cactus, how does a cactus reproduce? Cacti have sexually self-pollinate or assisted by insects and birds. So cactus have pollinators. Sunflowers. How do reproduce? Busy bees. Sperm meets egg. Time factor. Again, so sunflowers use pollinators. So once again, these are all things that you can search and research, right? Now, if you were to be really specific and go, okay, well, look, I'm going to write about one particular flower. And what I want to know is the roots of it. So special root adaptations of a Venus flytrap. Venus traps have long, stiff hairs inside their traps. There's habitat diet adaptations. So here's a whole video lesson about video or on study.com. Study.com is actually a really good resource for any of you that want to have a look. But there's a whole video on Venus flytraps if you wanted to have a look into that. So what you can do is just type stuff into Google and research it, okay? This is what I want you to get into the habit of, is researching. Taking time and asking the right questions. In this case, the right questions would be, what are the adaptations of the plant I've chosen? What's the special adaptations? What are the root, the stem, the leaves, the flower? All of these special things. Tell me about them, okay? Research them and tell me about them. Again, though, if you use the internet, please use your own words. I do not want to see words that I would never use in an English sentence. Words like components or, what's another word I saw? Trophic, atrophic and atrophic. I'm pretty sure that's something to do with like living organisms and how they breathe. I've never used that in a sentence, ever. I understand the word, but I don't think I've ever used it. So I want you to use words that you know. If you see a word you don't know, look it up, write it down, find out what it means, write it again. Okay. Yesterday, we couldn't finish a quizzes. So let's try another quizzes today. I want to get this complete. I want to get it done. And then what we'll do is I'm going to jump into some explanations about other types of habitats. We spoke briefly about rainforests, but we'll talk about rainforests, deserts, and marshlands today, very, very quickly. So I want you all, please, to go to quizzes. Yeah, Dino, 1 second. Yes, Dino.
Can we play team?
Yeah, we'll play teams if we're quick. Okay, if we're quick, I'll give you all, as soon as I set this up, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 90 seconds, okay? 90 seconds to get this done. We don't want to be wasting time, right? You ready? Okay, so team. Number of teams, let's go 4. Advanced settings, name factory, show answers in game on, power-ups on, timer, shuffle questions, redemption questions, show meme. Right, there's nothing here to say pause, okay? So as soon as this goes, it'll be fine. There's 17 questions, let's go. Okay, that was the most difficult. This one, a plant has adapted to life in a forest with little sunlight. Identify the best adaptation this plant might have to ensure its survival. Extremely long root system. Well, hold on, we're talking about sunlight. What are roots got to do with sunlight? Nothing. Thick, waxy, spike-covered leaves. Well, spikes are for defense. Ability to attach and grow upwards on taller trees. That makes sense. Shallow root system near the surface. Look at the question. It's about sunlight. So what do we need to do in a rainforest? We need to grow up. We need to get near the sunlight. So attach and grow up on taller trees. That's the right answer, 100%. Okay. What else? This one. Water lilies live in lakes and ponds. The lilies have very long stems. The picture above shows a water lily in a pond. How do stems help water lilies live in ponds? They absorb through the fur of the plant. Well, no, we make that in the leaves. They absorb water from the pond. Well, a little bit, but that's the roots. They enable the plants and flower to reach sunlight. Well, yeah, look how long that stem is. So yes, if you were to choose the correct answer there, it would definitely be the longer stems. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the presentation again. So what does water mean to an area, to soil? Bill, what do you think water means to an area or soil?
Give water. It gives nutrients.
Yeah. Okay, but what does water do to the nutrients in the soil?
It wash away the nutrient.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so water is going to wash away a lot of the nutrients in the soil. So what's going to tend to happen is you get flowers like Venus flytrap, the pitcher plant, who find other sources of nutrients because where they grow doesn't get enough phosphorus. Thank you, Dino. You tell me, Dino. Okay, tell us about the lack of nutrients, or what nutrients Venus flytrap needs.
In high acidic areas with not much nitrogen and other components for plant life.
Yes, good job. As I said, Dino, you sent me loads of really good information yesterday. You did use the internet, though. I can see you use the internet. Don't use the internet. Use your own words. Okay? It was really good information, though. So, like this much. Not this much, like this much. Right. So, again, those lack of nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen not being in the soil makes Venus flytraps rely on other sources to get their nutrients. Now, in some situations, you get water which is still, okay, like a pond or a marsh. Okay, the water's not moving anywhere. But in some places, you get flowing water. What else happens with water, right? Imagine you're in a swamp, and you start the swamp off for the day, and the swamp is up to here, and then it rains, and the swamp is up to here. What effect do you think that has on plants? Let's try someone else. Jasmine, what effect do you think that has on plants? If the water level changes. No problem. Okay. Mid A is Tim. Okay. Tim. What effect do you think rising water levels has on plants?
What?
A rising water levels going up and down. What effect do you think this has on plants?
If the water rises, I think that the plant will get more water.
Okay, now, Dina, what do you think?
I think the plant will rot if the water stay high for a long time, and if not, it will sunk the plant down.
Okay, maybe. In wetlands, these areas like swamps and marshes, they're usually flooded with water. The water can be flowing or can be still. They have low oxygen levels for plants and the water level changes. So what plants do is, like this little picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger coming out of the water, the plant will come up through the water and find ways to stay above the water. So what they've done is they've developed longer roots. Okay, so if I go back to that picture of the water lily here. So what happens is this root is kind of shallow. It doesn't go into the ground that much because think about it. If a root's job is to absorb water and it's in water, well, that root is not going to have that much to do, is it? Because there's already a lot of water in the plant. But the stem is long. It's long and it's thin, okay? Why do you think the stem needs to be long and thin? Kent, why do you think the stem needs to be long and thin?
That can bend when the water moves it.
Exactly. As the water comes in, if the water goes down, the stem will bend. If it goes up, the stem will get longer. So the longer and thinner the stem is, the easier it is to cope with getting its flower or its leaves above the water. And that's how it's going to work. The rising level goes up, stem changes shape. Goes down, stem changes shape. So that's just an adaptation of how some plants in wetlands have adapted their stems to deal with their environment, okay? So that's what I want you to look at now, okay? So your next step, I've asked you to look at roots for your book or your project. I've asked you to look at flowers for your book or your project. I now want you to do some research into stem adaptations. What are some stem adaptations? You can use the water lily, for example, we just spoke about. Cacti have very thick stems which store water. A sunflower grows very high, its stems grow nice and big. Stems, bark, trees, they grow defense mechanism on the outside. These are the things I want you to look at, okay? We've looked at green stems and woody stems. So find a flower, find a plant that you want to do some stem research on and go ahead and do it. We've got less than a minute. Any questions, please?